stairs are for giants. Like, literally, I was like, so I want you guys to give a huge round of applause for my partner here, Emilia Giordano, because tonight she is going through one of her biggest fears, which is public speaking. So can we give a round of applause?
So I want to introduce you to my little self. We are the co-founders. Okay, so close your eyes, and I want you to think of one thing that really holds you back. Settle into that feeling and really allow yourself to think. What is the cause of this resistance? Chances are it has to do with fear. Fear is a powerful tool that can help us or hurt us. We can gain power from it or lose power over its influence. I love this meme. Fear is false evidence appearing real. How often do you allow yourself to be held back by a phantom fear? When do you allow it to creep in, and how do you prevent it from taking over? What holds me back? I was diagnosed as a kid with 3 different learning disabilities: ADHD, executive dysfunction, and nonverbal learning disability. This is what I was told I couldn't do, and I'm still very forgetful. I was never told my strengths, and so I didn't realize that my naturalistic intelligence, my tendency for empathy, and my ability to be a kinesthetic learner was actually intelligence. I got a lot of bad grades and internalized this negative feedback, and as a result, I stopped taking risks and sunk into the background. It wasn't until I grew up that I realized my story was the same as so many others. This is my beautiful business partner and my best friends from high school, and they all have learning disabilities too, and it wasn't until after college that we discovered that we all had learning disabilities. So how do we unlearn fear? In my case, I had to start taking risks again. I had to learn to trust my instincts. I had to understand the mechanics of fear. It's important to recognize that there are 2 types of fear: illusory and survival, and you have to know the difference between the 2. Let's look at fight or flight for response for a second. If you come across a bear in the woods, your instinct may be to run. But if you do, you may scare the bear and get charged by it. Instead, you have to use reason to override that fear and maybe make a different choice. Stand tall and wave your arms and shout. For students with learning disabilities, life can be a lot like facing a bear, except your wilderness is the classroom, and your stress triggers may be test taking, public speaking, studying, reading out loud, or sitting for long periods of time. And you're triggered every day. I don't have a magic bullet, but as we conceptualized our app, the app we're developing that I didn't get to tell you about, we realized we had to really sink into vulnerability and reflect, maybe more deeply than we ever wanted to. And what we came up with was this solution: a self-advocacy tool that empowers students with learning disabilities to identify their academic needs and feelings and communicate them to parents, a teacher, or a therapist. Okay, we used intuitive design because we didn't want our students to go through what we went through, and we realized that the solution is actually very simple, and that the education system has totally overcomplicated things. And we think that it's simply time to get back to the basics. So what's the recipe for success? Kids need to identify their needs and feelings. What's happening in the classroom, and how do they feel about it? How do they find the right words to ask for help? And so it's really simple. You have to think of what's the breakdown in the classroom for the student, and where can they come in and say, this is my problem, and how do they feel about it? Because emotion is so important, and feeling is the most important thing when it comes to action. And how do they communicate? And who are they communicating to? And why are they communicating? And so a lot of times kids with learning disabilities have trouble finding the right words, and we want to help them do that. And cultivating mindfulness. Meg's mom has this really great concept where you cannot get in the car and drive to Idaho if you're having a scary thought or feeling. You have to make sure you don't get in the car and you don't overthink it, and you stand back and you work through it. And you have to have a positive mental attitude, but it's really hard to do that when you're a kid with a learning disability because you're constantly negatively reinforced. I never knew my strengths because all we ever talked about were my deficits. So kids really need to have that positive mental attitude. And the transformation is pretty simple. Does a caterpillar know it's going to become a butterfly, or do they just build the cocoon and wake up like, whoa, what happened? And the reality is that everyone's transformation is different, and everyone's fear is different, but you have to remember that it's the this is very long, actually. You dig deep on a climb, gain self-knowledge, and apply that self-knowledge, that power to any situation. If a climb you expected to be difficult proves to be easy and doesn't challenge you, then it loses most of its something. Essentially, you need to be challenged, and you need to do it in a way that doesn't trigger you to be fearful all the time.
So we are process this, and I want to give like a huge round of applause because she went through her fear. Thank you, Phil.